Logic Pro X Masterclass Part 3. Welcome to the Faster Class. My name is Norbs. Welcome to the $1 Billion Studio. Give me some dap if you're new. Welcome, and welcome back if you're back. We're about to dive right into it. You guys are one step closer to being initiated into Womp Gang. Hopefully by now you're already dangerous if you've taken in all the curriculum. I was trying to do this all in 3 videos. Looks like it's going to need 4. By the end of this one, you will have taken in 100 lessons, give or take. So we still got about 50 more to go, and I have a lot of goodies planned for you guys. And that'll include template files for every popular genre of music, MIDI chord packs, sample packs, and a few other things I've planned for you, on top of the few more things I still want you guys to learn, and some music theory and things outside of core logic learning. Okay, without further ado, dap me up one more time. You are now a whoa. You're not a womp yet, but you're a whoa. Whoa! How to add a modulator as a MIDI effect in Logic Pro X. I have a MIDI piano riff we've made here. We're going to go onto the layer, click on MIDI effects, and go to modulator. All this is really going to do is literally modulate your sound a little bit. And we'll just go through these factory defaults instead of me showing you what every single little thing does. I'm going to press play and start changing around some of these settings. Let's go. Actually, let's turn it off first. You hear it once, and halfway through, I'll turn it on. Great way to affect sounds to be lo-fi, detuned, downsampled, etc. It's actually hard to affect MIDI properly without bouncing it first and then doing your typical effects. So this is a great way to apply stuff directly to MIDI. There's not much to it, really. The rest I'll let you guys explore. There isn't that many functions where I got to explain everything. And that is how you pull up your modulator as a MIDI effect in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to add randomizer velocity effects to MIDI in Logic Pro X. This is basically for those that always gunshot their sounds in full volume and you're too lazy or don't want to go back in there and change all the velocity to be more organic. Go to our MIDI effects, go to randomizer, module madness, pitch bender, destabilizer, sloppy playing, velocity humanizer. And now when I play this will change the velocity and randomly change it for me. So I don't have to go in there and change it manually. We are currently on velocity, but we can change this up to other things. Let me go to tuning, and here we can also detune a little bit. Now we're at 0, so as I turn this up, we're going to start to detune. And that is how to add randomizer velocity effects to MIDI in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. We're going to pull up our instruments and go to drum synth. This will pull up this little interface here, and you have your kicks, snares, percussion, hats, and cymbals, and you can shape and mold each sound. So you have to keep duplicating this, which is okay. We always separate our drums anyway. I'm going to actually go ahead and just create a little kick, snare, hi-hat combo for this piano we have going here and make something out of this. Go to my snares. Hi-hats. You know, the more I'm using it here, the less I'm hating it. It's just limiting. I just like access to having a whole bunch of banks full of sounds and I can maneuver around them fast. This kind of slows me down a bit, but the quality isn't all that bad, actually. So having said that, that is how you pull up and use the drum synth in Logic Pro X. How to use the drum kit designer in Logic Pro X. Another tool I don't really recommend using. However, we go to our instruments, go to drum kit designer. You can do a stereo or a multi-out drum sounds, which no disrespect Logic, but I love your downloads a lot more than I do your default sound kits that come with this. So it's just a typical kit. You can click on a drum, shape it, choose from a few different ones. And that's it, boys. That's all we're really doing with this. So another reason why I don't really recommend using this, you have access to tons of samples. You have quick sampler, multi-sampler, contact plugins, other plugins and samplers, EXS. There's really no need for this. And I don't use it, and I don't recommend using the drum kit designer in Logic Pro X. That's how not to use the drum designer in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. How to work with amp designer in Logic Pro X. Amp designer is obviously meant for guitars typically. However, I tend to add it to whatever I want. Sometimes it's vocals, sometimes it's pianos, sometimes it's other instruments. I just find it's a good way to amp sound and alter it and give it that vintage feel sometimes. I'm gonna have to lower the volume here because it does bump it up quite a bit. We'll turn it off and then just audition it on and off and go through some of these real quick. You guys got all these bass, mids, treble, depth, etc. I'm not going to go through changing all the knobs and settings. You guys get them. They're pretty simple. This just is an easy way to go through and audition a bunch of them. I like that. So let's bring the rest of the beat back in now. Let me lay an actual guitar. Remember shortcuts, pressing Y to get to our instruments. Go in here, guitar. Yeah, I just want a quick acoustic. Not really much more to it. You do have your drop downs. You do have more control over everything than I'm showing you here. This is just a quick walkthrough. No need to go through every single setting. Okay, we don't need to keep going with this. I'll stop right there. That is a quick way to use the amp designer on any sound you want and get more oomph out of it, get more grit out of it. Next lesson. How to use pedal boards in your beats in Logic Pro X. Going to our effects, amps and pedals, pedal board, and bang. All this is really going to do is pull up combinations of these and you guys can mess with the sound a little more. We're going to leave our amp on and just keep going with this, as this is kind of a continuation to the amp designer tutorial before this. You get it. Distortion, boosts, grit, grime, noise. I love using this, but you can overdo it really quickly too. No need to go into every single setting of all of these. You can drag ones on and customize this to your own liking and get that sound that's really hard to replicate for anybody else. This was a quick one, but that is how to use the pedal board in your beats in Logic Pro X. How to apply and use the vintage Stombox effects in Logic Pro X. We are still in our acoustic guitar here. I'm going to go down to my effects, amps and pedals, stomp boxes, and there are too many to go over here, so we're not going to cover all of these. Talk about digging through the crates, but instead of crates of records, we have crates of effects here. So there's way too many to go over all of these. However, the stomp boxes are really cool and useful for me, especially in lo-fi or when I want to dirty up and grit up a sound a little bit because it's too clean and not organic sounding. Okay, so that is how to quickly use the vintage stomp box effects in Logic Pro X. I'd encourage you guys to spend a bit of time and go through all these for yourselves. You'll notice a lot of them become redundant and it's a lot less intimidating than it looks by seeing these huge drop downs here. Okay, next lesson. How to use the delay, tape delay, stereo delay, etc. on modern music and vocals on Logic Pro X. I should have prepared some vocals, but that's okay. You guys will watch me just make a fool of myself here, rapping a little bit. So let me just lay some vocals real quick. 1, 2, I said this is your frequency therapy, woo! Giving you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity, and I'm making fans out of my enemies. In the beginning parts of the tutorial, we went over the basic echo delay, so we're going to just skip that one. We'll go to Delay Designer. The Delay Designer is probably the most effective and advanced version of how to delay stuff and what kind of timing to stick to, with a whole bunch of presets for you ready to rock and roll, which is great. So falling pattern. This might be a bit much for vocals, but let's just start with this. See the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear pony even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity. This just warms it up a little bit so it's not so staticky, dry, and cut. So let's go to something more simple. Just a 1/4 alternative pan. So it's just going to be going like this a little bit, which is nice. And for most of these, you'll turn up the dryness and turn down the wetness because it's way overdone. I said, this is your frequency therapy, woo! Giving you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity, and I'm making fans out of my enemies, and I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear pony even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity. So that's a quick walkthrough of the Delay Designer. Sidebar, your sample delay is literally a delay. It'll just delay stuff a little bit, so it doesn't actually echo anything. Okay, so stay away from the sample delay if that's not what you're looking for. Just an offset, basically. Stereo delay, this is the one I tend to use the most, and we bring it down a little bit. You can affect left ear and right ear a little differently. You can cut off some of the frequencies so that it's just echoing the high end, the low end, etc. Maybe one ear is doing the high, one ear is doing the low. I said, this is your frequency therapy, woo! And a positive vibe, polarity, and I'm making fans out of my enemies, and I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear pony even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity. And And then the last one, tape delay.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And
as a final point, I just added some ad libs and double ups on some of the words. And there you can add your stereo delay and echoes longer, stereo image them a little bit. And it sounds really, really nice, packaging the vocal into the beat a little bit more, warming it up. So we'll play this once and wrap up this lesson.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Okay, that was a quick walkthrough of all of them. That is how to effectively use the delay, tape delay, stereo delay, and echo in modern music on vocals. It's basically just minimize them. They're all good. They all sound great. Just minimize them. Never overdo it. Okay, next lesson. How to effectively use bit crusher, overdrive, or phase distortion on vocals or keys in Logic Pro X. So we walked over how to automate before, and we had distortion in there, automating some distortion towards the end of the bar and then taking it away. This isn't going to be much different than that. I'll duplicate my vocal here, and so I have a backup, and we'll work with this. Now, as the drive goes up, obviously the volume is going to go stupid high as well. So let me start really low.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies.
On its own, raw like this, it sounds aggressive. It sounds rough. It sounds dirty. But you'd be surprised how many apparently clean sounding songs actually have a little bit of grit, a little bit of distortion on all the vocals pretty much. It acts as a bit of granular glue, as I call it. It kind of latches, the dirt kind of latches itself onto the other components of the beat, and it seems to mesh it in there nicer. Okay, so the top one is clean. The bottom one has the overdrive applied to it. You tell me which one sounds better. And we're going to start with the clean one.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity.
Now the dirty one.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies.
I like the dirt. The dirt makes it sound warmer. So bit crusher, beautiful to add. Clip distortion, distortion to overdrive. They're all the same. There's no real need for me to go and do the same thing on all of them. You're basically going to get different variations of and granular texturizing and distorting and destructing and downsampling of your vocal. That is how to effectively use bit crusher, overdrive, and phase distortion on your vocals or on keys in Logic Pro X. How to use the AutoFilter in Logic Pro X for great hip hop and lo-fi effects. This typically wouldn't be a track I would use it on. I don't mean this type of hip hop. I mean more boom bap-ish stuff that's meant to sound a little bit dirty and old and vintage. However, we'll try to make do. Go into our effects, go into filter, AutoFilter. We'll just play this and go through some of these presets so you get a basic understanding initially of what's going on.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. And a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love, sincerity.
I actually shouldn't have added it to the vocals. And if you do add it to the vocals, it's more meant to automate a couple things in subtle ways, not necessarily to have it on the whole time. So let me get rid of it there and let me add it back to the piano.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Again, this isn't a tutorial on how every single knob and button works. This is more how to introduce and implement stuff into your production workflow, and you guys can go experiment with. And by now, if you're this far and this deep down the rabbit hole, by default, just by looking at most of these, you understand what is about to do what if you play with it. So I don't need to go over every single little setting. That's why if you're wondering, I'm not sticking to the absolute basics of this button does this. I'm more like, here's how it works in a track. Here's where to apply it in a track, what type of track to apply it to, etc. So I hope you guys appreciate that style of learning. As a last point, something else you can do is add it to your stereo out, and very gently, you can hear my voice is being warped by this. You can very gently automate something to come in halfway, or when a drop's about to happen, there's a gap. This is a nice way to implement that gap and then take it back out with automation. Having said that, that is a quick way on how to use the AutoFilter for cool effects in hip hop and lo-fi in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to add quick stereo spread imaging in Logic Pro X. We're going to go to our master channel, go to our effects, imaging, and stereo spread, the bottom one. You can already tell by my mic how it's spreading certain frequencies left, certain frequencies right. And as I go through these presets, you'll hear a few of the variations. So I'll just play the beat and go through some of these. It's good to apply this to the vocals, each vocal even, or also automate some of it in and out so it's not just on the whole time.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Dope. So now what I'll do is just take it from my stereo out to my main vocal, which is that. And again, to move or copy and paste, open up your mixer and you can literally just drag this over here now instead of having to go set it all up again. Or hold down Alt and you'll copy it.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Woo! Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies.
I hope you have earphones on because that's probably the only way you're hearing any difference as I go through these. Otherwise, you're like, wow, what's he doing? I don't hear nothing different. But it's that subtle frequency breaking and moving. Some of these frequencies will go to the left, some of these will go to the right, and it does actually give you a spread out sound. When you do this under the main drums and bass and everything, instead of to the whole track like I did, you do add a nice addition to your spectrum where it doesn't have to go all the way left, all the way right. And if you do have 2, 3, 4 vocal layers over themselves as your lead, spread out a little bit, this will spread it out a little bit more and it'll sound more organic, warm, and sort of package and glue them all together. And that is how you add quick stereo spread imaging to anything really in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use the EVOC 20 filter bank in Logic Pro X. I'm on my main lead vocal, go down to my effects, go to filter, EVOC 20 filter bank. Same thing, I'll just press play, go through the factory presets. You guys can kind of get a feel for what's going on.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Giving you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. Out of my enemies, and I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Okay, there's a quick example of what it does. You can apply this to anything, vocals, MIDI, drums, etc. No need to go over all of these buttons. It's just more filters. I typically stay away from all of these filters that I'm showing you guys, but I do have to go over them quickly. But when you do use them, less is more. That's how to use the EVOC 20 filter bank in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use the EVOC 20 Track Oscillator for vocoder vocals or keys in Logic Pro X. So I'm still on that same layer. We're going to change this from filter EVOC 20 filter bank to the Track Oscillator. I'll solo my vocals and just run through some of these for you guys.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. I got love over will.
I don't know how I came up with these titles because this so doesn't really work well for vocals. Let me actually move this over to my piano. I think it'll sound better there.
Over will, sincerity.
Definitely not for this genre. Probably dope for EDM stuff and drops and trance and progressive house type stuff. It'll be great for it. But anyway, that is how to use the EVOC 20 Track Oscillator to get vocoder effects on vocals, kinda, or on keys in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how and why to add the Fuzz-Wah to get textures in your songs and beats in Logic Pro X. So I'll apply this to my main vocal again. I'll turn the bit crusher off so we can hear this better. Go down to our effects, filter, Fuzz-Wah. I'd like that Fuzz-Wah combo, please. Combo number 3, the Fuzz-Wah. Okay, it's pretty basic.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. I said, this is your frequency therapy. Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And
really nice controlled distortion. I like that. I probably still way overdid it, but I wanted to show you guys what it does. So now, just in my mixer, I'm going to move this over to my piano and apply it to the piano instead. See how it sounds.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Gifting you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And
you guys feel free to experiment and have fun with this tool. That is how you use the Fuzz-Wah in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to add SpectralGate to vocals or keys in Logic Pro X for that AIREY sound. Go down to our effects, filter, SpectralGate, and we'll go through some of these presets while the track is soloed so you guys can hear what it's doing.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. And a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies. And clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear porn ain't even scaring me. The will, sincerity.
Okay, only a few of these will work well on vocals, and when you do use them, again, less is more. However, they work amazing on instruments. When you want that sound to be there, but not really, but it's somewhere back there in the background, this is a good way to achieve that sound. So again, I'm going to move this from here to my guitar. Okay, not all of them are AIREY. Some of them are just choppy. Some of them are just gating certain things. However, the SpectralGate can do a lot. You can muffle this more with the EQ, get a nice little warm sound out of it by adding a little bit more of a reverb. And there you have it. That's how to get the most out of your SpectralGate for vocals or keys in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. How to add the Ensemble Tool in Logic Pro X for amazing destructive variations of sound. Again, can be applied to anything, vocals, audio, or Midi. And this is actually a good way to expand. How I was saying before, there's other ways to expand and stereo image and stuff. I already have it here, but we will reload it, go to modulation and ensemble. So now let me turn it off and I'll start playing it right about the 4 bar. So as I'm going through these presets here, you see what's going on, and you see what's going on with the visual.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Give to you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies, and I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fall for these parodies. Now the fear point ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Also kind of easy to overdo, but when it's a full track and it's a little busy, you can just take the output mix a little bit out so that it's subtle, and it does add great depth to your whole song, really. It just fills up the spectrum a little bit more if it's a bit dry or naked, or if you just like that full sound. Let me enable the piano back in and hear what we got.
I said, this is your frequency therapy. Give to you lots of prosperity and a positive vibe, polarity. And I'm making fans out of my enemies, and I see the universe with clarity. I can't believe I fell for these parodies. Now the fear point ain't even scaring me. I got love over will, sincerity.
Yeah, too much stereo spread, but you get it. Beautiful tool. Okay, that is how you use the Ensemble Tool effectively for amazing destructive variations in Logic Pro X. How to use the SubBass tool in Logic Pro X. Disclaimer, be careful. I'm going to turn it on right now. It's applied to my stereo out. You will see the change in my voice right away. It will really boost the bass in my voice. Like too low, not like Howard Stern, like there's a rumbling and a storm is coming low. Turn it back off, let this beat play, turn my vocals off even, and I'll audition it on and off to show you guys how sensitive this is. It's a great little hidden tool that you shouldn't apply like I'm applying to the whole thing. I'm just doing it so you can audibly tell right away, but apply it to your bass, apply it to your low end, and isolate it and make it subtle. And you'll get a little bit more deep end in the spectrum that you thought you couldn't get to. And the more you EQ, try to get in there, the faster you distort. So this is a quick way to get those subtle frequencies up. Okay, I'll go through it one more time and I'll choose all of these quickly. That's why I say be careful. I'm stopping there so I don't destroy your speakers. You can change all these to your liking or choose from these presets. And that is how you use the SubBass tool in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. How to use the ES, EFM, EVOC, and retro synths in Logic Pro X. I tend not to use these actually because I find that Alchemy and Sculpture has all these and more, and you can do more with them. However, all I can really do here is go through and audition all these for you. There's no need for me to do that, but it is your basic synth. Okay, that is the EFM, the ES. I don't know, the Alchemy versions of all of these are just so much better in my opinion, so I just kind of hate on them a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't. The retro synth actually barely makes this list because it does still have some cool things in it, and it's only because it's what I used to use. And there is a quick run through of the basic synths that come with Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use the Sculpture Synth for modern music in Logic Pro X. I'm giving this its own video because I feel it has a special spot compared to the others in the other chapter where I went over what basic synths come in Logic. So we're going to go to our instruments and just change this from sampler to Sculpture. And I just really like the way this sounds compared to all of the others that were in the previous chapter. This and Alchemy are kind of equal to me as far as usefulness, how often I use them and why I use them. Just sounds so much better and full, and they did such a better job on everything in here. So I won't be going over all of the functions. There's a lot of videos that go over everything in great detail. That's not what this is. I'm using this as a tutorial on how and when to use it and what kind of production formats to use this in. So we're starting on a new canvas because we were sticking to that same beat and track for too long. I want to start over. So this is not an acoustic guitar. This is my synth. But because I changed it from guitar to that, it's stuck to the guitar icon and name. So now I'm just going to rename that. And so I'm going to go find some pads. We're going to make something light, easy listening. Okay, so I'm going to lay a quick kick, snare, hi-hat combo, put some vocals in there, and then we can audition the changes of Sculpture.
I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's...
That sounds really nice, actually. I'm gonna mute that, duplicate it, open it up again, and now start changing these with these vocals going so you guys can get a nice little taste of what this does.
I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, you gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, yeah. Can't believe that she did me like that, it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, whoa. I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, you gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, yeah. Can't believe that she did me like that, it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, whoa.
And shout out to the vocals. Love yourselves, guys. Can't love nobody else until you love yourself. And if you do try to love someone else when you don't love yourself, toxic you is going to come out instead. Love myself. Sounds so narcissistic, but I'm serious. Love yourselves, guys.
She did me like that.
Especially if she does you like that. Come on now. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. That is how you use the Sculpture tool in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use Alchemy in Logic Pro X. Now, there's a ton of videos out there that go over every knob, every function, every feature, the detailed deep dive into Alchemy. It's not what we're doing here. You guys are free to go in there and experiment with Alchemy. But what I'm going to do here is just implement it into the song I have already on the go. I just demoed Sculpture for you guys. So we'll do the same thing with Alchemy. Pull up your instruments, go to Alchemy, which is the first thing on the drop down. We have our categories, subcategories, genres, etc. I'm going to go to pads and same thing, just utilize the same thing we were doing in the previous chapter and just go through some of these. But I love the presets. I don't really do much more than choose a preset and alter it with this a little bit and maybe take out some of the reverb or delay, and that's about it. Okay, so let's go and start something.
Can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, yeah. I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, you gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, yeah. Can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, whoa. I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, you gotta love yourself before you love anyone else, yeah.
And that, my friends, is how you use Alchemy, or how I would use Alchemy in this track. It has all the other sound types. Yes, I'm not going to go into an EDM sudden drop and demo a lead, but it's the same thing. You get it. You have your variation here. What I like to do is automate this. I'll start here, and by the end of the bar, I'm here and then bringing it back. And it's got a nice loopy, swirly effect going on that spreads out the stereo image nicely. That would be almost impossible to do manually with everything. So I utilize Alchemy mostly for its pads. And okay, I'm lying. Sometimes I'll just go to Alt and just randomly go through stuff until something sonically pleases me that complements what I'm doing in my track, and I put it in there. You can go to a simple view, you can go to an advanced view and alter every sound as well. You can also search for stuff here, save sounds, open sounds, etc. And that is the quickest but most efficient walkthrough you'll get on how to use Alchemy in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use or not use the vocal transformer in Logic Pro X. I say not use because the only time you really want to do this is when you really want to mess with it in a very deep way that doesn't really apply to songs, maybe for effects, to disguise a voice, to do chipmunk type sounds, pitch, vocal transform. I'm going to press play here and turn it on. You guys can see what this does, and I'll go through the presets with you real quick.
I can't believe that she did me like that, but it's okay. I'm gonna bounce right back, cause love myself, love myself. You gotta love yourself before you love anyone else.
We used to have a trick back in the day where we would do a whisper track behind everything. Literally whisper your whole line and subtly tuck that behind everything. You don't really hear it, but it's there to fill out some more of the texturing and whatnot and give you more to work with. Okay, we'll stop there. I consider this kind of a toy, kind of cheesy, but it might have its uses for you guys. That's how you use the vocal transformer in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. Horns in Logic Pro X. Don't mind that we're on an acoustic guitar layer. That's just what it started with in the template, and I just changed it to studio horns. I'm just going to record a quick little something here. So now that this is laid, I'm just going to turn the loop on here and bend and add my mod wheel vibrato to it to humanize it a bit. Let's go. And something else I like to do, which you've watched me do in the previous tutorials, is go to my tremolo, take this to maybe 2 bars, 4 bars, and slightly pan it left and right. So we have our lead horn going, and I don't recommend doing just all your horns on one layer. There's a lot of dynamics offered through this tool, and I would just separate a few more layers, pan them, use other versions of the instruments, and you'll get the most out of it that way. So I'll just duplicate this, move this down, and keep working on this instance. And let's go to the R&B section here. And like we've done with vocals many times, we're going to do this with Midi this time, which is to select all 3, create a track stack, summing, and now we can EQ all 3 of them together. And I want to take off a little bit of the edges again because it's just so wide. I'm going to open up my drum layer and just lay a quick something. So we have 3 that sound good together, or we can variate them into the chorus, verse, drops, change ups, bridge, etc. And as you can see, it didn't take me much to create a cool, unique, filled out, nice brass loop, lick, part of a song. Anyway, that is how to get the most out of your stock studio horns in Logic Pro X fast. So strings in Logic Pro X. So instead of doing the same demo I just did with the horns, I'm just going to switch these from horns to strings. It's pretty much the same interface, the same way it all works, same expressiveness and articulation settings, etc. Woo! Logic did a really good job on the horns and strings plugins. Congrats, guys, and awesome. So now we'll listen to it with the effects. And that is how to use and get the most out of the stock Studio Strings plugin in Logic Pro X. Next lesson. Why I don't use and don't even recommend using the Ultrabeat drum machine in Logic Pro X. Mainly, it's because there are much better options. Also, it has a very steep learning curve. And if you're going to already learn a beat machine, you might as well jump to what typically you should be using, which is your own samples put through Logic's EXS multi-sampler and mapped, just like I showed you in the previous tutorials. Go check that tutorial if you haven't watched it yet. Get your own samplers and start setting up your own banks. And before you know it, you'll be like me and you'll have a whole bunch of these in every single genre that you work with. Or there's third-party things like Contact, which gives you access to a whole bunch of amazing plugins and drum machines, etc. And not to mention, it's so much easier nowadays for everyone to just drag in their drum loops, drum samples, either here right on the timeline or here into the quick sampler, and it'll drop them in and you're ready to go. Now you can save this to pull it up for future use the same way. And most don't even do that. Most nowadays just drag a loop in that's already at the same time, or they stretch it so it fits, like I showed you how to do in the tutorials. And that's it. They don't even use drum kits. And for those reasons, I recommend you also stay away from Ultrabeat and start using what is easier, more efficient, and more widely used. So if you do projects with others, you'll talk the same language. Rozumiesz? Okay, idziemy dalej. Let's go. Next lesson. How to use the vintage B3 organ for lo-fi or hip-hop in Logic Pro X. So we have it pulled up here. If you don't know how to get to it, just new instrument layer and go down to vintage B3 organ. So there's no need to explain all of these. It's very obvious. You can pull down and grab a sound you like. I'll be random here and just grab something, say reggae organ. Sure. They all sound kind of pretty much the same anyway, but I'm just going to lay a couple chords and then we'll mess with it and add our drums and make a very, very quick lo-fi beat out of this. So now I'm going to apply a modulator to it in my Midi effect, modulator. And this is where I'm going to detune and make it sound all warped and wonky. Okay, sounds good. Something else I'll do right away, if you guys don't have this yet, go grab it. It's free, and that's iZotope vinyl. I have a lot of vinyl types of sounds, but this adds a little bit of snap, crackle, pop, which you can hear already. Background noise, buzz, wear and tear on the actual file when it's playing, lo-fi, you can hear it on my voice, spin down so it'll be a slower, okay? And then our times here, we can go right back to 1930 where there's no bass and it sounds very, very muffly. Amazing for lo-fi, but we don't want to stick there. Just have your drops last quarter of a bar there before you bring it back to at least 1980. See? Then once we have something laid, we can go through these presets some more and choose something else if we don't like this organ or get sick of it. And that is a quick example of how and when to use the vintage B3 organ in Logic Pro X. How to use the vintage electric piano in Logic Pro X. It's very similar to what I just walked through, so instead of going through this again, we'll just go to vintage electric piano. I'm going to solo this for you guys, let you hear it once, and then we'll walk through some other presets. Let's go. Also, just keep in mind, I do have my modulator going, and I do have vinyl going. I just turned it back off so that it doesn't interrupt with while I talk. So let me turn the modulator off and vinyl off, and this will now be raw. You can see how much dynamics get added when we do add a modulator and vinyl. It sounds almost naked now. Let me turn the modulator back on and vinyl back on. And on. immediately sounds vintage, old. I love it. Okay, and that is how to use the vintage electric piano in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use the Mellotron synth in Logic Pro X. Boy, wouldn't I love if this was a real Mellotron. However, we're just gonna go down to vintage Mellotron. Let me get rid of the bottom chords. Okay, informal complaint to Logic. This is spiking the crap out of my CPU. It's clipping, it's distorting. Not using it or recommending you guys to use it unless you don't have that problem. And if you do, have fun exploring. The Mellotron is a beautiful synth. However, something's not programmed right here. The CPU shouldn't be spiking on such a small little thing. Okay, that is how to carefully use the Mellotron synth in Logic Pro X. How to use the Test Oscillator in Logic Pro X to generate white, pink, or brown noise. We go to our instruments, we go to utility, and we go to Test Oscillator. This will bring this up right here. We have test tone and we have sine sweep. I'm just gonna stick to test tone for a second and turn this up. You'll hear the white noise, pink noise, needle noise, square, sine. All brown noise really is pink noise, but even darker. So it's just the lowest bassy part of the white noise. Pink is middle, white is highs. Now this is good to add sometimes behind stuff. Sometimes it's too clean. You want a little bit of grit, a little bit of noise. So this is where you would go to add some of it back in. You can also automate this, which I'm going to show you in the next lesson. But there's a lot of uses for it. So if you're like, why do I need this? Why is this here? I'll show you one example in the next lesson. And again, behind a lot of music, when things are too clean, they will add a little bit of noise just to thicken it up and add texture to the sound. That is how to get to and generate white, pink, or brown noise using the Test Oscillator in Logic Pro X. Next lesson, how to use white noise to make a riser or a fall or a buildup before a big drop. So I have a track open here and I'm going to open up the automation and you're going to see the layer I'm on right now is increasing in volume as well as changing in EQ, going from brown noise to pink to white, kind of like that. I'm going to solo this first so you guys can hear what's happening, and then I'll play the whole song with the drop so you can hear how and why it's used here for a drop. Okay, so you saw the levels changing and you saw this changing. One more time. It's alive. It looks like it's alive. Okay, now I'll unsolo it and just play this part of the drop for you guys. One more time with this open so you can see it happening again and listen to it, and it's complemented with kicks and snares and other stuff rolling along with this before the drop happens to build it up more. And that is an example of how and when to use white noise with the Test Oscillator to create risers or falls in Logic Pro X. One of these days, you guys will have a huge catalog full of music and you'll be sitting in a room just like this with Bobby Gotti protecting your billion-dollar studio with your 40 million behind you here, just wondering what to do with it because your music popped so much. Hey, we can dream. Let me dream, man. Don't kill my dreams. Congratulate yourselves, guys. You're at the end of video 3, giving you a clean visual to look at so you're not staring at the Logic interface anymore for the rest of the night. Put it down for the night. Take a break. Video 4 will be linked in the description below for when you're ready for it. Hopefully it'll be the last one. I'd ask you to dap me up, but I've been on a little bit of the bottle there. Now I'm trying to wake up a bit. So just like salute. Okay, we got to finish counting the rest of this fake money here and get out of here. Hey, Bobby, you ready? Go get the car, bro. I'll finish this up. See you guys.